I'm Tanya Corcoran.
This meeting is being recorded.
Great. I'm the Assistant Director, Deputy Bureau Chief. On July 29th, I came to the Bureau on loan from my current position with the Contractor State License Board while the Governor recruits to fill the Bureau Chief position. The Bureau Chief position has been advertised and it's expected I'll be with the Bureau providing management oversight for about the next 60 to 90 days. I did want to say, though, in my short time being here, I want to express my appreciation to the staff for their welcome and really their hard work and dedication. So really appreciate the staff. They are working very hard. Shelley Jones is our host and moderator today. She connected us all today here. And so we appreciate, Shelley, that you're here moderating for us. Also joining us is the Bureau's management team and our legal counsel, Michael Knotz. So Bureau staff will be utilizing their cameras when they speak, and council members, I know some of you have cameras, some don't, not a problem. Whatever your preference is, you can use. Just ask that if you would like to make a comment, and we'll ask for comments throughout the meeting, that you raise your hand in the WebEx application. And if you can't do that or it's hard to find on your phone, please just go ahead and interject and we'll take your comments. And I will try and call on all council members to speak throughout the meeting. So at this point, we'll get started with calling roll. Diana, please call roll.
Roll call for the council members. If you can please announce that you're here. Pascal Beniamini.
Yes. Good morning. Present.
Bert Grimes.
Present. Thank you.
Donald Lucas.
Present.
Dan Rhodes.
Dan Rhodes, present. Thank you.
Toby Taylor.
Toby Taylor's present. Thank you.
James Gorelli.
Present. Thank you.
Chris Higdon.
Here.
Thank you. Stephen McDaniel. I don't see him here. Heidi Sanborn. He did announce that she was here. And then Steve Whitekamp.
Here.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. So we'll move to agenda item 2, public comment. To allow enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, public comment is being limited to 2 minutes apiece. If you have comments on one of our agenda items, we would encourage you to wait until we get to that item. You'll have an opportunity to make your comments at that time. If your comments do not involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time to make them. So Shelley, can you please check to see if any members of the public would like to comment or offer an agenda item?
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. For today's public comment period, we will be utilizing the question and answer feature in WebEx. To activate the Q&A panel, you'll be locating the Q&A icon on your screen, which looks like a question mark inside of a square. When you click on that icon, it should open a text box. And in that text box, you can simply type the word comment and submit that to the panelists. Comments will be taken in the order that they are received today. We are using a new WebEx environment compared to what you may be used to in the past. When I call on names for public comment, I will click on your microphone at my end, which will alert you at your end that you now have the ability to unmute yourself. You will receive a little pop-up window, and if you simply click on the button that says unmute me, it will then unmute your microphone. When you do unmute your microphone, you will hear a brief statement that is generated through WebEx. So to allow just a moment before you start speaking for your comment. As Tanya mentioned, each comment will be limited to 2 minutes, and I will be providing 15-second reminders when your time is about to expire. When your time expires, I will mute your microphone and move on to our next commenter. Just want to take a brief moment to remind everybody we are again in a new WebEx environment, and as you will see, we have closed captioning. You should see on your screen somewhere the captioning streaming across your screen as individuals speak. You do have the ability in most instances to move this closed captioning window around if you'd like to put it at a different location on your screen. If you do not want to see it on your screen, you also have the ability to turn it off. You would locate the small closed captioning icon on your screen. If you're on a computer, it would typically be in the lower left corner, and it should be sitting next to another icon that looks like a robot. If you click on that closed captioning icon, it will hide those closed captionings, and then you can simply click that same icon again to have them reappear on your screen. And for our panel members today, for your discussions, if you are going to be utilizing your raised hand to alert the panel members that you'd like to speak, you can locate that hand icon by hovering over your name. When you do that, the small hand icon should appear next to your name, and you can click on that to raise your hand, and then you click on that again to lower your hand. And with that, at this time, Ms. Corcoran, I do not see any requests for comment. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, thank you. Great, so we'll move on to agenda item 3. That's the review of the March 25th, 2021 Advisory Council meeting minutes. The minutes can be found in your packet. They begin on page 13 and go through page 24. Are there any council members that have any comments or proposed edits to the meeting minutes? I'm not seeing any comments. Shelley, can you just check for public comment?
This is the moderator. We've again opened the Q. Apologies. We've again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
It is closed.
Okay, great. So we move to agenda item 4, which is the administrative updates. We're going to start with the fiscal update. The fund conditions are located on pages 26 through 28 of your packet. I'll turn this over to our budget analyst, Heather Robinson, to present. Heather, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm Heather Robinson, the budget analyst with the Department of Consumer Affairs. Karen Munoz is also here with me. She is one of our budget managers. She'll be here to assist in answering any questions you might have. Today, I'm going to be going over your fund condition statements for all 3 funds, starting with the electronic and appliance repair. Some things to note before we get started. Since the fund conditions are based on fiscal month 11, it does show the current year as 2021, budget year as 21-22, and so on. Once we get the actuals for 2021, the next fund condition will display the years correctly. This will hopefully be around mid-September. For a quick overview, for the prior year column for 1920, this has the actuals for that year. The current year column for 2021 has our projections based on fiscal month 11. The budget year column for 21-22 will reflect what was released in the governor's budget. And the budget year +1 column for 22-23 shows workload and revenue projections being realized, as well as an assumed appropriation growth of 3% annually. Right now, we're going to concentrate on the current year for 2021. If you look at that column, we'll start with revenues. We are projecting revenues to come in at $3,234,000. Then scrolling down, you'll see the loan to the general fund. And then a little farther, the expenditures, we're projecting total expenditures of $2,692,000, which puts the fund balance at $4,273,000, and the months in reserve at 11.3. So then you'll see for 21-22, the months in reserve is 9.5, and 22-23, the months in reserve will come up to 7.7. You'll also notice in 21-22 and 22-23, we've included the GSI 4.55% salary increase. So does anyone have any questions on this first one?
Yes, this is Bert Grimes. Can you tell me what page on the agenda that's on that we're looking at?
Yeah, that should be page 26.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I can give you a chance to go to that page first before we move on. Does anybody have any questions for that one?
I'm not seeing any other questions, Heather.
Moving on to the next page, which will be the home furnishings and thermal insulation fund condition. For that one, the current year for revenue, we're projecting $4,930,000. Then you'll have the loan to the general fund. And then the expenditures, we're looking at $4,255,000 with a fund balance of $5,567,000 and a months in reserve of 9.9. And then for 21-22, months in reserve of 7.6, and 22-23, months in reserve of 5.2. And as you can see, the GSI increase is included for the 21-22, 22-23 years. Any questions on this fund condition?
I'm not seeing any questions. Oh, Don Lucas has a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Don.
Member Lucas, you're muted. Member Lucas, if you can
Don,
hear us, your mic.
Okay. You all right now?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, I just comment. It sounds like some of the audio from your end is cutting in and out. And I don't know if it's my end or your end or anyone else is having a problem. So my question has to do with the compliance testing with the regulation regarding furniture installation and especially with the CPSC. But my guess is it would be better to discuss that during that part of the agenda. Would that be okay?
Yeah, Don, I think we'll cover that during the lab update.
Any other questions for home furnishings and thermal insulation fund?
Heather, I'm not seeing any.
Okay, and then we'll move on to the household movers fund. For the current year 2021, for revenues, we're looking at $3,758,000. Then we have the transfer to the general fund again. And then the expenditures, we're looking at $2,026,000 with a fund balance of $4,898,000 and a months in reserve of 23.7. And then for 21-22, months in reserve of 29.0, and for 22-23, 32.3 months in reserve. Any questions on any of the fund conditions?
I'm not seeing any questions. We do, yes. Steve,
Looks like Member Whitecamp.
Steve Whitecamp? Yes. Member Whitecamp, you can go ahead.
Member Whitecamp, I see that you are unmuted, and it looks like you're trying to speak, but we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to ask, do these numbers take into consideration the huge increase in business that our industry has seen as a result of the pandemic? And second of all, our fund balance, months in reserve, is at an extremely high number. Just a comment, I'm hopeful that we will find good use for those reserves. Hope I'm being heard.
Hi, this is Karen Munoz. I can actually address some of that. I wasn't sure if I heard you correctly. Are you referring to the Household Movers Fund in specific?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm not sure what you're referring to when you're saying the increase due to the pandemic, but for current year that does show almost actuals. We have completed fiscal month 11 in actuals, and we actually have pulled fiscal month 12 numbers and really close to closing out current year. So the expenditures for the current year or the 2021 year has almost realized, so it's going to be close to $1.8 million in expenses. For 21-22, the increase in expenditures is identified in there, so we are accounting for that. If there are any other costs that might be coming up to household movers, if there's any beefing up to resources, that will be identified at a later time on your fund condition if that were to be something that the Bureau chose to do.
Right.
And that would then take those reserves, it would cut those reserves down, so be putting it to use, as you say.
Thank you.
Are there any other
And-
questions regarding the fund conditions?
I am not seeing any other questions at this time.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Karen. Shelley, at this time, can you check to see if there's any public comment on the fiscal update?
Absolutely. We have opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, thank you.
It is closed.
Okay, so we'll continue with the rest of the administrative update. And you can find a written summary on pages 26 through 28 of your packet. Excuse me, pages 30 through 31 of your packet. Specific to personnel, I did want to highlight the fact that the Bureau continues to have a high vacancy rate. It's about 25% vacancy rate right now. The management team has prioritized positions to fill in their units, and we are recruiting in phases, filling the most critical positions first. The managers, when they do their update in their program area, they'll speak to their specific vacancies and priorities at that time. But one of the changes that we have made and to help address the vacancies and other administrative workload is last week, Kelly Williams assumed the management of the administration functions of the Bureau on a full-time basis. So the administrative functions, that's comprised of our public counter, phones, mail, cashiering, purchasing, contracts, human resources, and the advisory council meeting support functions. So we'll begin recruiting to backfill Kelly's former compliance unit manager position in the months to come, but we're hoping with consolidating those administrative functions that we'll be able to move through the recruitment and hiring process quicker. For the past several months, though, Jacqueline Castro has overseen all administrative functions in addition to her full-time job as the licensing manager. So I really wanted to take a moment and thank Jacqueline. She's established relationship with key departmental staff. She set up electronic files, and she's instituted tracking measures that Kelly and her team will continue to build upon. Jacqueline, you've done an outstanding job, and I really thank you for what you've done for the Bureau. So thank you. Next, I wanted to provide an update on the Bureau's IT, Information Technology System upgrade. It's known as Business Modernization. So we are what's called part of a cohort of other DCA boards and bureaus, 5 or 6 other programs, and we're going to be transitioning to a product that's called Enlumen IT Solution. So Enlumen has been used by some other boards and bureaus, and the feedback that we've received is it's very adaptable, it is easy to use, and it is a cost-effective IT solution. So to ready ourselves for this transition, over the last week and over the coming weeks, staff are working really hard reviewing and updating all licensing, enforcement, administrative, and laboratory testing business processes, mapping all of those out, and those processes will be used to develop the functional requirements for our specific needs for this IT system. The plan is in October, the department would begin to select a vendor, and we'd begin building the new system in February or March of 2022. Moving to a new IT platform is staff intensive, so I did want to advise the council at the start of the year, this effort will require dedicated staff resources for approximately 18 months. So Bureau staff that have specific knowledge and expertise, they will be moving in and out. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily full-time, but there will be times where they will be dedicated a large portion of their day or their weeks to contribute to the new design of the new system. I'm going to be serving as the executive sponsor, and Yafana Lamar has been designated the project owner. So Yafana will be coordinating and making a lot of the decisions on the behalf of the Bureau as those will come up during the IT build process over the next 18 months. So it is our understanding that all 3 programs, EAR, Hufty, and Home Movers, they're going to all move over at the same time. However, should there be any delays, Home Movers will be the priority since we do need to get off the PUC system. Okay, so specific to COVID, we continue to follow departmental and statewide mandated directives. We have been advised that mandatory testing is forthcoming for employees that do not provide proof of vaccination. So we are working closely with the department on what that means, and we will roll that out as we have more information on that. And then lastly, I wanted to touch on the Bureau strategic plan. So we will be utilizing the department's solid division staff to facilitate the development of the Bureau's 2022 through 2025 strategic plan. Yafana and I will be working with the department on the preliminary aspects, gathering information and developing the plan schedule. And over the next few months, the department will be conducting what's called a SWOT analysis. So it's really to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And they'll be surveying staff, industry members, interested parties, advisory council, you as well, and our licensees. So Solid will compile all that information and we'll bring that to a future advisory council meeting where we will collectively develop the strategic objectives. So updates on that process will be provided at each of the council meetings. So that concludes the administrative update. Are there any questions or comments from council members? And Steve, I believe that's, you have your hand up. Floor is yours.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. So my question is regarding the licensing public information that's currently housed on the CPUC website. Actually, maybe it's not a question. Is there still confusion there because they've already migrated the passenger carrier information off that? So there's a bunch of red notice stuff there that confuses consumers, et cetera. So I do look forward to you migrating the information onto your own platform. I just ask that, because that's a site we live in daily, that we get some heads up when that's going to move and the new address where that will be located, the licensing information.
Absolutely. No, thank you. We will keep in communication with you on that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Just checking to see if there's any other comment. It looks like I see a hand up for James.
Hi there, thank you. I've got a question about the modernization project of the technology. In the document, it says that you're going to be analyzing the business requirements. Is that something that council members might be a part of?
So at this point in time, what that means is we're really mapping out our current processes. So that's really the flow of work and what we see as our to-be processes. But I would certainly love to get input from council members if there's ideas on additional automation efforts that we should make or changes to processes. Certainly would welcome your input on that. So right now we have a really quick time frame on this about turning it around because they are going out to bid. So I'd look at maybe setting something up with you in the next few days to get those ideas.
Very good.
Would that work?
Thank you.
This is
yes, that'd be great.
Dan
Thank
Rhodes. I would like to be a part of that as well.
Okay. Dan and James. Okay, great. We'll coordinate that and I'll have that with some key staff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Great. So Shelley, I don't see any other advisory council members with questions at this time. So can we check for public comment?
Absolutely. This is the moderator. We've opened that Q&A panel again. If you'd like to make a comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Okay, and I'm not seeing any requests. Would you like me to close the panel?
Thank you. Yes.
It is closed.
Great. So we'll move to agenda item 5, which is the division updates and statistical overview. We'll start with the laboratory testing. Rose Pacoda, our senior environmental scientist and laboratory supervisor, will provide the update. Go ahead, Rose.
Okay. Thank you, Tanya, and good morning. I am Rosemary Pacoda, Laboratory Supervisor. Fiscal year 2020-2021 has been a year of continuing changes for our lab unit. Training of 2 environmental scientists, one who is recently promoted and another who is newly hired, continued at the start and throughout the fiscal year. A third environmental scientist, ES, to replace the September 2020 retirement of a staff member with over 30 years of experience, was just hired at the end of April. With the addition of the third ES and a return of another from family leave, the lab unit is now fully staffed for the position of environmental scientist. However, the lab has had throughout this past year and currently still has 3 vacant positions: 2 textile technicians, levels 1 and 2, and that of an office technician. It is anticipated that the hiring process for the textile technician, who must perform unique and specific duties, will commence before the end of the calendar year, with the process of the hiring for the office technician to begin shortly thereafter. This past year marked a year for much in the way of laboratory accreditation. In August 2020, the laboratory furniture embedding program successfully completed 3 days of assessment required for accreditation by the accrediting body A2LA. Due to a contract change in March, the laboratory furniture embedding program again successfully completed another required 3-day assessment for our new accrediting organization, the International Accrediting Service, referred to as IAS. Also in March, the Laboratory Thermal Insulation Program, which is evaluated under NIST NAVLab accreditation program, completed 2 days of the required 3-day assessment. NIST NAVLab certification requires that certain evaluated portions of the program be conducted on-site and are not permitted to be conducted remotely. Due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, the 3rd day of assessment could not be conducted, but has been scheduled for this coming December 2021. In between work and assessments, laboratory staff has made presentations at events sponsored by various organizations with the intent of providing better understanding of testing and current regulations. Presentations were made for the American Home Furnishings Alliance, AHFA, in February, and for the International Association of Bedding and Furniture Law Officials, IABFLO, in April. After having provided a brief background of laboratory operations for this past fiscal year, I will now present the laboratory statistics. If you turn to page 33 of the materials handout, you will see the laboratory statistics for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The first section of this page describes the type of testing, those articles received, number of articles received during the fiscal year, and those that have been completed with a pass or fail result. The first category being TB 117-2013, we have received 56 articles. However, completed during this fiscal year, 80 articles passed the test and with only 1 failure, thus a 99% pass rate and a 1% failure rate. The other type of testing performed is 16 CFR 1633, which is the federal standard for mattresses. 16 mattresses were received, but during this time, 13 mattresses passed the 1633 test, with 7 failing. Thus, a 65% pass rate, 35% failure rate. Thermal insulation is also some of the testing that is performed. We have received 15 samples this year for thermal insulation testing. 28 have been completed that have passed. 10 have been completed that have failed. We have a 74 pass rate for thermal insulation, 26% failure rate for thermal insulation. Bedding products. We have received bedding products numbering 13 during this past year. Bedding products are in the form of comforters, pillows, and similar items. Completed items that are evaluated for fiber content, finish size, net weight of filling materials, and similar criteria. 24 articles were completed in testing, 100 with 100 passing and 100% passing rate. The labeling criteria, which excludes thermal insulation. Products are evaluated either in the furniture and bedding program, mattresses, and mattresses are evaluated according to the required law and flammability labels. Of these, 22 labels have passed without any modification. 49 have had minor violations, 66 have had more moderate violations, and 11 have failed. Therefore, the pass rate of labels has been 15%, minor violations, 33%, moderate violations, 45%, a failing label rate of 7%. The second section of the statistics, request has been made for the location of where the samples that we acquire are actually manufactured. These manufactured locations are divided into those made within California, those in other states, and those made abroad. The first test type of interest for most people is TB 117-2013. Of those 83 samples that were completed this year, 20 were manufactured in California, 3 were manufactured in other states, and 60 articles were manufactured overseas. Thus, we sampled, our articles sampled were 24% from California, 4% from other states, 72% from overseas. Similarly, a request was made for mattresses, where mattresses that we test come from. Of the 21 mattresses that were completed this year, 11 were manufactured in California, 5 were manufactured in other states, 5 were manufactured overseas. Thus, our mattress percentage from California for those we sampled was 52%, 24% from other states, and 24% from overseas. The third section of the statistics refers to flame retardant chemical statement analysis. This is the statement that's required, the SB 1019 statement that's required on those for TB 117 products. This year, with the samples that were received, 51% had no added flame retardant chemical checkbox. 3 had checked the box, added flame retardant chemicals, and 2 did not check any box whatsoever. Thus, 91% of the samples we received at least complied with the no flame retardant chemical box that is required to be checked. 5% had indicated it contains flame retardant chemicals, and 4% had no indication whatsoever. The second portion of this is the FR document request. Since AB 2998 was implemented, focus and the emphasis for this recent bill has been placed there. AB 2998 does not have the document requirements that SB 1019 does. So therefore, that is the reason for seeing a 0. Our emphasis has been placed on looking for compliance with AB 2998. The second portion that you'll see is DTSC analysis requested. AB 2998 and SB 1019 still have DTSC testing requirements. You will notice that 5 articles had samples, had components sent to DTSC for testing. Finally, the last section of the information looks into samples analyzed with no flame retardant chemical statement. The first is the DTSC analysis. Of those that were sent, 11 articles passed their ppm requirement, and one had a failing, exceeded their ppm requirement. Therefore, the passing rate was 92%, while a failure rate of only 8%. In addition, under those articles that were completed under the SB 1019 FR document requirement during this fiscal year, 3 manufacturers submitted compliant information and 2 failed to submit compliant information. Therefore, we have a 60% compliance rate and a 40% failure rate as far as FR document review goes. Now, are there any questions?
We'll take Don Lucas.
Thanks. First of all, congratulations. That's great because I know that's a real chore, and keep up the good work on that. So I think that's good. I'm also really happy that the TB 117-2013 test results look really good, but the mattress results seem like they're high this time. And I don't know if you have any comment on that.
At this moment, I don't have any comment. I would have to look for past history. I would also defer and request additional information from one of our engineers who conducts the test as to her opinion and reasons for, not reasons for, but if she has any insight as to if she's seeing differences in manufacture or products.
Okay, great. That would be good. So the other question is we're still struggling with the labeling compliance. It seems like that's been an ongoing problem for several years now. So, and I don't see much improvement. So I don't know what, I know that you're just testing it. So I don't know if we're going to have to, the Bureau needs to relook at this, but I know with regards to TB 117-2013 that with the CPSC regulation and now that you're probably going to get worse results initially when you have to have the different labels. So that's something else to be concerned about. So that was it. And then the other question I had was about the distribution of the manufacturers. So I thought one of them we're trying to get at was not only where they're manufactured, but where the failures are occurring to find out if it's a local California, a national, or an international problem.
Okay. Don, I apologize. You broke up during part of that last question you had. To my understanding, you wanted to see a breakdown in the future of where the failure of mattresses are occurring. I'm sorry, where the failing mattresses are produced in state or abroad or otherwise. Okay.
Right, because I don't think you need to do it for the furniture, because if we're getting 99% passing, that's great.
Okay, I will put that on for next time.
Thank you.
Or to see if that can be done. Thank you, Don.
Okay, we have a question from Pascal.
Yes, thank you very much, and especially for the breakdown on the location for the manufacturing of under the TB 117-2013. Very helpful to see the origin. One question I have is going back to the law label. So I do share Don's concern about the passage and the failure rate there. It's kind of been all over the place, unfortunately, the last few years. And I still don't have a clear understanding about what would constitute a minor violation and what would constitute a moderate violation, if you can touch on that. And the second part of the question is the Bureau considering disseminating additional examples of law labels? Because it's been a while since that was done, and maybe a refresh on that would be helpful to the industry.
Okay, regarding, we'll take your, the second part first. The second part first, where you're asking about law label updates as far as an FAQ to further guide the industry and help. That, I guess, we'll take that under advisement, and I will speak with policy and chief to see what can be done in timeframes. That's the first part, since that is, we contribute, but I do not have sole authority over that. And regarding the your concern with the what the various categories are and how they are broken down, we have acknowledged, and I've spoken, and we are scheduled to discuss that to provide better information. But we've scheduled meetings in this coming week, in the coming weeks, with our newest member of our team. So I hope that helps a little bit in answering your question. Tanya?
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. I think we certainly can do an industry bulletin and put information out to the industry regarding the law, the labeling requirements. So we can do that in the weeks to come. And as far as, yeah, like Rose mentioned, I want more clarification on the minor, major, and moderate failures. And so we do have meetings set up to start discussing that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. And we have Bert Grimes.
Yes, I keep watching the difference in how often the law labels are incorrect. And both Don and Pascal touched on that. Is there a way that, number one, we can put better examples on our website? And number two, list some of the problems, like, a lot of the labels are not 1/8 inch high. Make sure you're 1/8 inch high in the letters. Just put down the problems that we have, specify them to industry so the industry gets a clarification. Also, when you talked about a bulletin, Tanya, how do we communicate with our licensees? I don't think we have email addresses for them.
So my understanding, and Yafana, you can jump in and if there's other methods, but certainly we have a listserv, and so that's of our licensees that sign up to receive information from that. I am not clear about the collection of email addresses, so I'd have to defer to staff on that.
Hi, good morning. This is Yafana. We're not authorized to require email addresses from our licensees. However, we do have the listserv, the interested parties list. So if you want to show anyone how to sign up, it's on our website. If you go to the right side of our main page under quick links, there's a link to add yourself to the interested parties list. And then
is there a way that when we get applicants, new license applications, that we could ask for the email address and just put optional? Because that's the way everybody's communicating right now. And I don't really know how many people that will go on the website and say, oh, look, I could be an interested party. I think we're limiting ourselves just to that one list.
We do have fields for email addresses on our license applications. It's just not a requirement in order to get licensed. So when we collect them, we have them. If they don't offer that up, that is up to the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Looking, it doesn't appear that we have any other advisory council members with questions at this time. Shelley, would you please open it up to public comment?
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. And if you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And I'm not seeing any requests at this time. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you. And thank you, Rose, for the update. We'll move to our next agenda item, which is the update from licensing. I turn it over to our licensing manager, Jacqueline Castro, to provide the update.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Castro. I am the licensing manager for the Bureau. Currently, licensing has 5 staff vacancies and is working diligently to fill these positions based on priority in the unit. I'm now going to be reporting on the licensing unit statistics. The total active registrations for electronic and appliance repair are as follows. Appliance service dealers, 2,530. Electronic service dealers, 3,767. Combination electronic appliance service dealers, 413. Service contract administrators, 61. Service contract sellers, 11,000, for a total of 17,771 electronic and appliance repair licenses. The total active registrations for home furnishing and thermal insulation are as follows. Furniture retailers, 2,039. Bedding retailers, 2,171. Furniture and bedding retailers, 10,907. Custom upholsterers, 446. Supply dealers, 86. Importers, which include overseas manufacturers, 5,670. Manufacturers, 1,342. Sanitizers, 25. Wholesalers, 166. Thermal insulation manufacturers, 98. For a total of 22,950 home furnishing and thermal insulation licenses. For household movers, there were 165 household mover permits issued. There was a total of 205 household mover exams administered with an exam passing rate of 90%. For fiscal year 2021, there are a total of 1,076 active household mover permits. This number also includes active and suspended permits. Gross operating revenue includes all revenue derived from the transportation of property having origin and destination within the state where the revenue is derived from transportation performed under a permit issued by the Bureau. For fiscal year 2020-2021, the household mover total quarterly revenue thus far is $2,891,810.85. Please note that there are still outstanding quarterly reports the Bureau has not yet received for the months of April through June. The final due date for this report was August 16th, so the quarterly reports received now will also include a late penalty fee. This concludes the licensing statistical overview, and I will now take any questions.
Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I just want to compliment Jacqueline and the rest of the licensing team on their efforts and processing the new movers that are attempting to get into the program. From all I hear from everybody is they do an excellent job, very responsive, and make it easier for people to go through the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, this is Bert Grimes again. Is the Bureau, the home furnishings is that still every 2 years for a license?
Yes, that's correct.
Are the others every 2 years?
Every 1 year, every year. Sorry, for the year licenses,
Yes.
it's every year. For home furnishings, it's every 2.
Okay. Do you think the home furnishings could be turned into every year at one point in time? The only reason I'm asking is, somebody opens up a manufacturing or a retail store, they have to pay a 2 years license, and they're only in business for 1 year. And I don't know, would that help your cash flow of money coming in? Does all the money come in at one time every 2 years, or is it staggered over the months or the years?
No, it normally comes in when they apply for the license or when they do their renewal. So there isn't, we don't do a payment plan. We don't do it per month. We do it in complete payment. If they do come in sometime closer to, let's say if they add, I don't know, locations, we do like a prorate fee, but we do not stagger the fee throughout the year. We do not.
Okay, is there any way you would consider doing the home furnishing line?
Would you like me to
bring over 30? Staff to follow. And hopefully at some point in time, they'll want to promote into possibly a special investigator position in our division. Our current vacancies in the compliance unit, we have 2 permanent staff services analysts that are vacant. They're currently being advertised at this time. I have 1 limited term staff services analyst that will be advertised hopefully in October. We have filled a full-time analyst position last week, and we have a second one starting on August 30th. So we are rebuilding our team in the compliance unit. Field investigative centers, we have 1 special investigator vacancy in the Northern California, and that recruitment will begin in October. Now I'm going to be going over some charts here that are located on page 37. Complaints received. For EAR, we received 1,278 complaints. Closed without investigation were 798. Referred for investigation were 513. For Hefty, we received 759 complaints. 292 were closed without investigation, and 480 were referred for investigation. Household movers, we received 536 complaints. 21 were closed without investigation. 515 were referred for investigation. Total complaints received by enforcement were 2,573. 1,111 were closed without investigation, and 1,508 were referred for investigation. Closed without investigation are mostly for non-jurisdictional complaints, manufacturers for ear and hefty. For household movers, we had one come in this morning that was sent in, the complaint was opened, and it was for a move outside of California that was terminated outside of California, yet it was filed with us. So that is a non-jurisdictional complaint for us. Ear complaints, the closures, 416 were received, 399 were closed. For hefty, 249 were received, 242 were closed. For household movers, 122 were received, 108 were closed. Totaling for the Enforcement Division, 787 were received, with 749 being closed. Field investigations. For ear, there were 108, with 95 being closed. Hefty were 239, with 168 being closed. Household movers, 396, with 136 being closed. Total investigations for the field were 743, with 399 being closed. Each field investigator at this time has an average of 31 open complaints from the 3 practice acts combined. As our compliance investigate cases that have minor administrative violations, these will be handled within that unit, which will reduce the amount of cases that the investigators have in the field, and that will provide them additional time for the proactive enforcement operations. As we go to citations assessed, ear assessed 109, with the penalties issued were $8,150. Hefty issued 274 for penalties of $38,801. Household movers, there were 55 with the penalties of $173,000. Total citations issued were 438 for a total of $219,951. All enforcement staff can issue administrative citations for the following violations. And these are how we generally look at our proactive arm of the Bureau. For Hefty, we do our proactive compliance visits on these targets. They're unlicensed, and we are looking to have them apply. They are issued administrative citations as well. For ear registration, it is the same, proactive compliance visit by field staff. For household movers, we do the undercover sting operations. This is one of the most effective ways to fight the underground economy in all 3 practice acts. As we complete our proactive work and our reactive investigations, licensing, we will see an increase in applications coming into the Bureau and a compliance as a result of strong enforcement activities. To date, completed enforcement training. We have had enforcement staff undergo the Penal Code Section 832 Laws of Arrest, Search, and Seizure. This is a requirement, especially when we issue notices to appear. We have to obtain a delegation of authority, which we were successful in doing in March of 2021. The PC 832 course was a requirement for staff in order to issue those notices to appear. We had classroom training and mock training for our special investigators with respect to sting operations. We had classroom training for one day, and then we conducted a mock sting operation. This was to familiarize staff with the equipment setup and use, to ensure they were following safety guidelines, that they have open communication, they have specific undercover roles while conducting these operations. We tested our radio communications and our audio recording pursuant to Penal Code Section 633. And this is permission to surreptitiously record our targets. We obtained this permission from the local district attorney's office so that we can include these as evidence in our criminal filings. We did sting interview techniques, and we touched on Miranda, which will be administered by our law enforcement backup. In June of 2021, we conducted a pilot sting operation in Napa County. This was done, I come from the contractors board, and we were able to set these stings up in a matter of just a few days. With household movers, it's a different type of operation. We needed to establish the method of operation for the unpermitted movers. And it was determined that we need to set these appointments for our targets a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks in advance. At this operation, we had the St. Helena Police Department, the Napa County District Attorney's Office, Sonoma County District Attorney's Office, and the Marin County District Attorney's Office. The reason we had so many different agencies at this operation, because they want to be involved in our operations to help fight the underground economy, consumer protection, and these counties are all members of the Department of Insurance grant for workers' comp. So anytime we conduct an operation in their areas, they benefit from this because these movers do not have workers' comp, especially the unpermitted movers. From this operation, we had 7 criminal filings with the Napa County District Attorney's Office. 6 of them were notices to appear. 1 was filed after the fact once we determined who the individual was. This is for unpermitted movers, advertising violations, and workers' compensation violations. We had 2 felony insurance code 11880 cases filed with Sonoma County. They had a target that they were investigating for premium fraud for workers' comp. They asked if we could invite them to the operation. They were unpermitted movers. We went ahead and invited them. They came and with employees. So this helped us file our cases with Sonoma County, and it will help them with their premium fraud investigations. In addition, the 6 targets that received NTAs, Napa County is going to file civil cases on Business and Professions Code 17200 and 17500 for unfair business practices. This is done again to help level the playing field, and they can assess very large civil penalties in the civil arena. In addition, the St. Helena Police Department towed 4 moving trucks for vehicle code violations, which mostly they did not have a driver's license or they were not properly licensed to drive these vehicles. Most recently, we had an incident unfold here this week, and I'd like to go over that with you.
I want to say, first of all, compliments to Rick and the entire enforcement crew. We've been asking for over a dozen years for multi-jurisdictional proactive stings, and you guys are doing great work. And the hostage work you've done is spectacular and unique in the country. There's no one else doing it. I know you've recently signed an MOA with FMCSA, and I think that's the only way that consumers can get any help is from state agencies. The feds don't have the resources to
pay that or apply for a permit. One of the things that we do is in communicating with the unpermitted mover is to provide them the resources to apply for a permit in California in hopes that they would apply. They do have opportunity to appeal the citation or request a CRC with Bureau staff. There are resources for them to use, and we encourage them taking advantage of these.
And on the citations that have been issued, I don't know if you have the information right now to advise what number of that is unpermitted versus permitted.
You know, I don't have that information at this time, but I can get that for you and communicate with you.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. And I would ask that in future reports that because this number is so big and such a large percentage of the citations assessed, that it be broken out into those two categories.
I will make sure that happens.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'm looking to see if there's any other advisory council members' comments at this time. I'm not seeing any, so Shelley, we can please check for public comment.
Absolutely. This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Great. Thank you, Rick. We'll
Thank you
now
very
move
much.
to agenda. Okay. We'll move to agenda item 6. It's the 2022 Bureau Sunset Review process and overview. You can find the related packet materials beginning on page 39. I now turn it over to our policy manager, Yafana Lamar. You're still on mute, Fauna.
Thank you. I clicked it and it didn't work. Again, good morning, council members and participating members of the public. The Bureau is about to become engaged in going through the sunset review process. So I want to give you an overview and go over the timeline with advisory council members. And there's a timeline on page 40 that outlines the sunset review process, and I'll describe steps necessary to complete the sunset review so you know work being done by the Bureau. First, a general overview. Each year, the Assembly Business and Professions Committee and the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee jointly hold sunset oversight hearings to review boards and bureaus under the Department of Consumer Affairs. The sunset review process provides an opportunity for DCA, the legislature, boards and bureaus, interested parties, and stakeholders to discuss the performance of the boards and bureaus and make recommendations for improvements at a hearing held by the Joint Committee. The Bureau is going through sunset review in 2022. To prepare for that process, the Bureau is developing a comprehensive report detailing its work since the last sunset review in 2018. The report will consist of licensing and enforcement data and responses to a questionnaire developed by the legislature. The Bureau will also provide an update to previous issues identified by the legislature and new issues identified by the Bureau. The legislature will then write a background paper on the Bureau, and the Bureau will respond to issues identified in that paper during a hearing in front of the Joint Committee, and a bill will move through the legislative process to set the Bureau's next sunset review. So now I'm going to cover the steps on the calendar that's on page 40. Since we're in August, I'll go ahead and start in August. We have begun drafting Bureau responses to the the questionnaire template provided to us by the legislature. And we are also in the process of data validation for the past 4 years. Those are the reporting years for this sunset review period. Once the report is complete, we will submit our report to the DCA Division of Legislative Affairs for department level review. The report will also be reviewed by the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, as well as the Governor's Office, before we submit our report to the legislature on December 1st. After the report is submitted to the legislature, we can make the report public. We'll distribute the report to advisory council members for review, post to our website, we'll send an email blast to our interested parties list, and we will promote its posting on our website on our social media. You'll see on the timeline that a hearing is expected to be held in late February or early March, leading up to the hearing. The Bureau may be interviewed by committee consultants, and supplemental material and information may be requested. The interview, along with the supplemental information and the Bureau's sunset report, are used by the committee to write a background paper, which is issued shortly before the hearing. I included the background paper from the last sunset review in your materials. Those can be found on pages 41 through 68. The background paper will be similar to the one included in your materials, and it will include issues identified by the Joint Committee on which they would like the Bureau to provide more information. The last background paper included 14 issues. The issues begin on page 56. Those issues covered administration, outreach, licensing, enforcement, and Practice Act issues. The Bureau must, once that the background paper is issued, the Bureau must immediately develop responses to the questions posed in the staff recommendation portion of each issue on that paper, as those will be discussed during the Bureau Chief testimony at the hearing of the Joint Committee. Within 30 days following the hearing, the Bureau must submit written responses to each of the issues to the legislature. Those also will be posted to our website. After the hearing, the Sunset Extension Bill goes through the regular legislative process, including potentially being amended. It will be heard in Policy and Appropriations Committees and will undergo floor votes and presentation to the Governor for signature. Once passed, the Bureau will begin work of implementing any legislative changes made on the legislative sunset or on the Sunset Extension Bill. Those usually have to be implemented by January 1st unless a delayed implementation date is enacted for a specific provision. Now that we've covered the process, I want to circle back to the report. This is where we need your input. In addition to elements such as data and responses to the legislature's questionnaire, we include responses to those issues identified in the last background paper. Those responses are meant to update the legislature on progress made since the last sunset review on each of those issues. Also in the sunset are new issues. These are the issues identified by the Bureau. These issues often result in legislation, so we try to identify issues that can be solved through legislation versus like an internal policy change or through regulations. Including policy issues does not guarantee their inclusion in a bill, but that's where we like to keep our new issues grounded, is in a policy arena. Also, because we're the ones who identify the issues will likely need to be revisited during the next sunset review. So we try to be very thoughtful and and just bring up something that we would like guidance and direction on from the legislature for the next few years. These factors make identifying the issues critical because they can impact the Bureau and its stakeholders for years to come. So although the Bureau is under a very tight time frame to submit our report to the DCA Legislative Affairs Office, we would like advisory council member input to identify issues for potential inclusion in this year's report. I would like to open the floor to advisory council members to see if there's issues you feel merit inclusion. I heard Bert's question earlier in the meeting where he asked about going to annual versus biennial licensing for a hefty. That is the type of suggestion that we're looking for. So are there any suggestions from advisory council members? I see Bert Grimes' hand.
Yes, I have two. I'm not too sure if the first one is for the sunset review, but we need to really improve our consumer outreach program. The Bureau does a great job protecting the consumers, but the consumers don't know about us. Is there a way that could be included? Like, did you know you had to hire, if you hired a household mover, had to be licensed? Did you know that when you have somebody with comes into your house and does electronic repair, they have to be licensed? I think that's something that, and that, you know, the home furnishings was responsible for getting the chemicals removed you know, out of furniture. Is that something that we could entertain and get part of a budget or something to really go out and improve our consumer outreach? Is that part of something that would be done in the sunset review?
It's actually something that we strive for right now. I absolutely agree. We could do a better job. We need to get our name out there, our existence. That is definitely a goal of ours, and that'll probably be part of the strategic plan. As far as inclusion in the sunset report, I'm not sure. We can see if we could fit it into the report somehow. Because the issues from the last background paper include outreach, we will have to respond on our progress since then. So that may become part of the discussion, but yeah, I'll see what we can do.
Okay, and if it's in your strategic plan, that's fine too. Just, I think it's something we really need to dedicate some time and some money to.
Agreed.
My second question would be sunset review. Is we did in the sunset review for 2014, we tried to include the percentage issues on law labels in the sunset review, and I don't think anything happened with that. Can we include that this year in the sunset review? I know you're working.
Definitely.
You're working on regulations and policies.
We can definitely look into that. I know it's been an ongoing issue, just like the biennial versus annual. So we can definitely look into including that.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know who raised their hand first, so I'll go in order of the list. I see Steve.
Good morning, Fauna. Steve here. First of all, on the outreach, I want to put a compliment out that a lot of members have been getting calls from realtors who are now asking for permits. And I know we asked previously that the Bureau reach out to realtors and insurance industry, as they also have programs with DCA, and that appears to be happening. So thank you. This is my first engagement with a sunset review. I just want to know, will there be legislative open committee hearings where we'll be able to make comments about positive aspects of the Bureau?
Yes, the hearing that will be held in late February or early March is open to the public, and they take public comments. And then each time the sunset extension bill is heard in policy or appropriations, they also take public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Steve, for bringing up real estate agents. I should have added this to the agenda. We reached out to the Department of Real Estate, and the commissioner was very receptive to working together with us on outreach for that. So they actually included an article in their summer newsletter. It's posted on their website now about the Bureau and household mover permit requirements, and that went out to their 450,000 licensees. So we are very appreciative of the Department of Real Estate. You know, as soon as they heard about the problem, they jumped on it and wanted to help us out with that. So I'm glad to hear that it worked.
It does. And if you would also put that press release or any press releases you have on all your social media accounts, we'll be distributing that as well. So I would just suggest that those go out on social media as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Pascal?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to echo Bert's sentiments and comments, especially regarding the addition of the percentage law label issue for the sunset review. I fully support that.
Okay, thank you, Pascal.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions or input from advisory council members. Shelley, can we open this up for public comment?
Actually, Member Whitecamp still has his hand up. Did you just not lower it?
I didn't know I had to lower it. Sorry.
That's okay. I will handle it. I got it lowered. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have another question. All right, and so with that, we will open the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to the panelists. Not seeing any requests for comment. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Great. We'll move to agenda item 7. That's the legislative update. And Yafana, you'll lead us through that review and discussion as well. Floor is yours.
Hi, thank you again, Tanya. I want to start off by giving you some important legislative deadlines coming up. Tomorrow is the fiscal bill deadline, and the appropriation committees of the Assembly and Senate are meeting today to dispose of all bills in the suspense file. So those bills are bills that have a fiscal impact of $150,000 or greater. I'm actually waiting for that to start because we have a couple bills that are going to be heard today. From August 30th to September 10th, both houses of the legislature may only hold floor sessions, and the last day for the legislature to pass a bill is September 10th. From there, the governor has 30 days to sign or veto a bill after it's passed, with October 10th being the final day that he can sign or veto a bill. If the governor does not take action on a bill, it is considered to be passed. And with that, I'll get to the legislation listed on the agenda. The first bill is AB 224 by Assemblymember Daly. This bill would grant, and this is, the bill text begins on page 70 of your materials. This bill would grant an exemption from Bureau permit requirements under the Household Movers Act when a storage container is packed by a person other than an employee or agent of the storage delivery company. This bill is presented as being intended to only impact a few companies. However, there could be unintended consequences of creating an exemption for storage container delivery companies. In addition, the permit exemption would result in exempting movers from complying with the maximum rates and rules for transportation of used property, commonly known as the tariff. The tariff limits rates that can be charged by household movers and establishes contracting, consumer notification, and claims process requirements, among many other consumer protection provisions. This bill contains an urgency clause, which would require a 2/3 affirmative vote if it makes it to the floor. And is signed by the governor, the urgency clause would make the bill effective immediately upon signing. This bill is on suspense in the Senate Committee on Appropriations, waiting to be heard any minute. This is, so this bill's location will be updated probably by the time this meeting is over. If it survives suspense, it will be ordered to the Senate floor for a vote of the full Senate. Are there any questions on this bill? Okay, I don't see any hands. Agenda item 7B, AB 652 by Assemblymember Friedman. The bill text begins on page 75. This bill would prohibit the sale and distribution of new juvenile products and sleeping products that contain regulated perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also known as PFAS chemicals, at a rate at or exceeding 100 per million. This bill was amended after we published the bill language to the meeting materials to make a technical change from prohibited to regulated PFAS chemicals. Although these requirements would not be enforced by the Bureau, I present this bill because it would impact the same juvenile products, or it would impact the same stakeholders that AB 2998 does, because it includes the same juvenile products, which the Bureau does have jurisdiction over. I just, want to make sure our stakeholders are informed of major legislation that may impact them. Also, when introduced and presented at the last advisory council, this bill applied to bedding products within the Bureau's jurisdiction. However, that was amended out of the bill. This bill has been ordered to the Senate floor for a full vote. Because this bill was amended by the Senate, it must return to the Assembly for a concurrence vote on the Assembly floor before going to the governor. Are there any questions on this bill?
This is Don Lucas. I just want to make sure that the involvement, if this passed as
Right.
I'm sorry, Don, you were cutting out. I couldn't make out what you were.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that the Bureau would not be involved with any enforcement or compliance testing if this bill passed as amended.
No, this bill does not impose any responsibility or authority on the Bureau. This is just strictly informational for stakeholders who are subject to AB 2998 because it would impact the same people.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised for that bill, so I'll move on to agenda item 7C, AB 646 by Assemblymember Lowe. This bill would have required programs within DCA that post to its website revoke status of a license because the person was convicted of a crime to post notification of expungement to its website as well, or remove the revocation posting if the licensee is no longer licensed. This bill would have authorized the Bureau to charge a $50 fee to do that. However, this bill was held on suspense in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, so it is no longer moving. Any questions on this bill? Okay, agenda item 7D, AB 885 by Assemblymember Quirk. This bill would have required any meeting that is required to be open to the public to be both audibly and visually observable. This bill would have required advisory council members who cannot attend in person to be observable. In other words, participating by calling in would no longer be sufficient. So this could impact the advisory council when we begin traveling for advisory council meetings again to have them in person. However, this bill was held in the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization, so it is no longer moving. Any questions? Okay, agenda item 7E, AB 1026 by Assemblymember Smith. This bill would have I'm sorry, I meant to list the page numbers on each of these bills. This one should start on page 90, but AB 1221 was inserted in its place. If you go to the table of contents at the beginning of the materials, I included live links to the bill language on each of the bills, each of the bill where it's stated on the first page of the materials. But AB 1026 would have required DCA programs to reduce initial license fees by 50% to an applicant who can show evidence of honorable discharge from the United States Armed Forces or the California National Guard. This bill was held on suspense by the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 7F, AB 1221 by Assemblymember Flora. This bill would impact Bureau licensees. This bill would allow service contractors to offer continuous until canceled or month-to-month contracts so long as the continuous nature of the contract is disclosed in a clear and conspicuous manner. This bill would also define clear and conspicuous for the purposes of this disclosure. Since the last advisory council, this bill was amended 3 times, so I'll briefly cover those amendments. On April 5th, amendments replaced the term obligor with service contractor, require the service contractor to disclose to the buyer if an alternative to enter into a fixed term contract is available, and require service contractors' service contracts sold online to also be cancelable online. On May 5th, amendments require the service contract buyer's affirmative consent to enter into the continuous until canceled contract term. The amendments also further require service contractors to disclose whether a fixed term contract is available, require cancellation to be effective immediately upon notification from the consumer, defines a refund calculation method, defines terms under which the service contractor may cancel the contract, and specifies these requirements are only effective to contracts entered into on or after January 1st, 2022. On July 5th, those amendments were technical and clarifying. This bill is on suspense in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. It's waiting to be heard any minute, just like AB 224. So this bill will have its location will change by the end of this meeting likely. Are there any questions about this bill? Okay, I don't see any hands. So I'll move on to 7G, which is AB 1386 by Assemblymember Cunningham. This bill would have prohibited any program within DCA from charging an initial application fee or initial license issuance fee to an applicant who provides evidence of being married to or in a domestic partnership with an active duty member of the United States Armed Forces who is stationed in California and who holds a current license in another state. This bill was held on suspense in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. Any questions? Okay, 7H, SB 586 by Senator Bradford. This bill eliminates 22 criminal administrative fees by state and local governments to individuals who are arrested, prosecuted, or convicted of a crime. Specific to the Bureau, this bill would allow an individual who is ordered to have an ignition interlock device installed to seek civil damages for against an IAD installer who fails to comply with the income-based pricing as prescribed by Vehicle Code Section 23575.3K. This bill would also entitle the individual to recover attorney's fees and costs. Additionally, IID installers and providers would be required to annually report to the Bureau of Automotive Repair the provider's fee schedule, total number of people where a verification was conducted, and other data relevant to their providing IID installation services. This bill would also make many other amendments pertaining to IIDs, which are highlighted throughout the bill. I did not change the color of text that was not applicable to IID installers to help you see what changes those are. I also omitted pages of sections that didn't apply to our stakeholders to save room in the materials. This bill is on suspense in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. So this bill's location will also be updated today. Are there any questions on this bill? Okay. Moving on to 7I, SB 772 by Ochoa Bo. This bill would have, the bill text begins on page 144. This bill would have prohibited DCA programs from issuing an administrative fine to licensees for minor violations of their respective licensing act. This bill would have defined minor violations as those that do not pose a serious health or safety threat, that are not willful, that are not committed by a licensee on probationary status, that are committed by a licensee who has a history of committing the violation, and the licensee becomes compliant within 30 days. This bill had a lot of discussion when it was first introduced at our last advisory council meeting. However, this bill was held in the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development without a vote. Are there any questions about this bill? Okay, last bill, agenda item 7J, SB 826. Text begins on page 148. This is the committee's omnibus bill, the Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development, sorry. It's their omnibus bill on which they make technical, non-substantive amendments to sections of the Business and Professions Code. This bill was amended twice after the version included, but I included the version that shows the amendments that are being made to our practice acts. The amendments to our practice acts do the following. They clarify our disclosure requirements for enforcement actions against licensees, that they apply to all license types within the Bureau, not just an inclusive list, which is what's currently in code. They add the Bureau's fingerprinting authority under the Household Movers Act to the General Business and Professions Code that names all programs within DCA that have that authority. It updates the name and classification number of a contractor state license board license type that, if held, the applicant is exempt from our licensing requirements under the Electronic and Appliance Repair Service Dealer Registration Law. The bill would add the term investigator to the definition of enforcement staff of the Bureau under the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Act to reflect our special investigator classifications that make up our field enforcement unit. It would add the Household Movers Act to the other laws enforced by the Bureau as referenced in the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Act. It would update references to the Department of Health Services to rename them as their current name, the Department of Public Health. They would correct the location of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration substance data sheet, which is used for enforcement of AB 2998. There was a typo in drafting that law, so this would fix that. And finally, it would remove an obsolete operative date in the Home Furnishings and Thermal Insulation Act. It goes back to 2007, so it just makes the technical change of removing that date. This bill is on the Assembly floor consent calendar. Consent bills, or the consent calendar, is a group of bills that are voted on together. They're all non-controversial, non-cost producing, and they have had 0 no votes throughout the legislative process. So the legislature votes on them as a group. So this bill is in that group of bills to be voted on. Are there any questions about this bill or any of the bills I included on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any. Shelley, can you open up the public comment, please?
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on any of the bills discussed, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
It is closed.
Thank you, Advisory Council.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to agenda item 8. It's the residential furniture flammability combined labeling requirements. Policy Manager Diana Godinez, please provide the council an update.
Good afternoon. In previous discussions, it was mentioned that the Bureau will accept the placement of the federal statement beneath the Bureau's flammability label. However, it was not yet confirmed whether CPSC would accept this as well or whether a standalone label will be required. Since then, CPSC has provided an example of a standalone format as well as a combined format on their website. This is provided on page 163 in your materials. Per CPSC, the label may be a separate label or it can be added to the bottom of the label required by SB 1019. The webpage where this information can be found is cited at the bottom of page 163. CPSC also mentions that the label requirement has a delayed implementation date of June 25th, 2022. That's also provided in their website. The Bureau has no authority over the federal label. However, we wanted to provide a quick update to ensure the Bureau's labeling requirements continue to be met. We would also like to take this opportunity to remind industry that the adoption of TB 117 2013 has no effect on the Bureau's existing mandates, such as SB 1019 or AB 2998 requirements. All formatting specifications for the Bureau's flammability label are still required to be met as specified in California Code of Regulations, section 1374.3. So the 2x3 size requirement for the Bureau's label is not inclusive of that federal statement. That's all I have for this agenda item. If there's any questions.
Bert, you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you. Can we put that information on our website, on the Bureau's website? And can you also state that somewhere that the California label is still the California label? You're still required to have that. This is an additional statement only.
Yes, Bert, we can do that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Don?
Yeah, hi. So the question I have, because we've been having such a problem meeting the labeling requirements, is California going to have to enforce the federal requirement for the label? In other words, if you see a California label that doesn't have the federal, either a separate label or anything on it, on the California label, is that a violation of the California? Will that fail the California labeling?
No, it wouldn't. We don't have authority over that federal label, so we don't have any authority to enforce it either.
Okay, so the other question, I'm not sure this is to Diana, it might be more to Tanya, but at a recent BIFMA meeting last month, there were a lot of questions from industry, and it seemed like there were a lot of, from Andrew Locke, he actually used the word squishy answers when people requested clarification from the CPSC about the requirements. Is there any ongoing effort to try to coordinate the FAQs from California and from the CPSC? Because the other problem is that the CPSC at that meeting said they are not going to be doing any enforcing or testing. So it seems like you're putting all the burden back on California to make sure that the federal requirement is met. That doesn't seem quite right. So I'm not sure why California is stuck with it, other than the fact that they pioneered the requirement, which I think is great. But it's too bad the federal government can't help California out when that's the federal law now.
We'll be updating our FAQs to include more information about CPSC, but if you want to answer that one, Tanya.
Yeah, I mean, Dawn, I think I'd like to have a conversation with you to get more details on this. So I wasn't at that meeting last month, wasn't on board,
Right.
so I'd like to hear more what the issues and concerns are to see how we can address it here.
We can do that, after this meeting, because there's a lot of information that we don't want to take up all the other members' time, I think.
Great. I'll schedule something. Thanks.
Okay, great, thanks.
And I think we have Pascal.
Yes, thank you. I have a very technical question because I know it's going to come up once this example is disseminated. In the combined label, the language is not in caps and is not the same font size as the other parts of the law label. Is that acceptable, or would the Bureau expect the font size and the language to be in caps just like you have it in the separate label?
You're meaning the federal statement?
Yes, that's correct. I'm talking about the
They-
federal statement. Yes.
Going to the website, they do specify the font and the type size in there.
Understood, but in your example, you have the separate label to be in caps, but in combined label, it is not. That's really what my
Oh, correct.
question
This
is.
this is directly from their website. So this is what they are saying they will accept.
Okay, so from a Bureau perspective, given that there's no enforcement on the federal requirement, if a industry company in upholstery and furniture takes the capitalized version of the separate label and plugs that into the combined law label, that would be acceptable to the Bureau?
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Just checking to see if there are any other comments. I'm not seeing any additional comments from advisory council members. So with that, Shelley, can you please check for public comment?
Absolutely. This is the moderator. We have opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And our first comment comes from Brenda Spear. Brenda, I sent you a request to unmute your microphone. As a reminder, you will have 2 minutes.
Sorry, I just got a notification. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, fantastic. This is Brenda Spear. I'm with IKEA. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to make comment. One thing that we noticed during our review of the CPSC's sample of the TB 117 2013 label is the CPSC has some formatting differences. Notably, they have some bolding at the top of the label. They've also inserted a line break between the two sentences. The samples that you have on your own website do not use this bolding or line break. If we choose to use this example given by the CPSC where they have bolding on the California label, would you still accept that as being compliant?
Yes, we're only looking at the Bureau's label.
Yeah, the Bureau's label, not the CPSC text at the bottom. The CPSC has the notice, this article meets the flammability requirements, ... They have that bolded, whereas your examples do not.
Require it to be bolded, but I don't think it would be a violation if it is.
Okay. Fantastic. I will take that feedback back to my group. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next comment comes from Andrew Locke. Andrew, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, thank you. I just want to point out any questions about the federal label, please direct them to us specifically. And I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand Don. We're not enforcing California's label, but we are doing enforcement of the new federal standard, in case that was not clear.
Thank you for that clarification, Andrew.
And it looks like those were our only 2 requests for comment. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, thank you.
It is closed.
Okay, great. So we're moving to agenda item 9, which is future meeting dates. I would ask the council to consider holding the next meeting in January, as the Sunset Review report will not be public until early December. Meeting in January will provide the Advisory Council the opportunity to review the report and provide comments before the Bureau goes through the Sunset Review hearing. So at this time, just wanted to ask you if you're agreeable to holding that in January, and if so, availability looking at either Thursday, January 13th or January 20th. So I'll open it up to the council members. It's time.
Either one's good for me. This is Bert Grimes.
Thank you, Bert. Steve?
Either one's good.
This is Dan Rhodes. The 20th is better for me, but I could make either work.
Okay.
This is Steve Whiteycamp. The 20th is best for me as well.
20th? Great.
This is Toby Taylor. I can do either.
Thank you, Toby.
This is Pascal Beniamini. I can do either as well.
Great.
This is Chris Higdon. I can do either.
Great.
James Gorelli, both are open for me.
And just so we'd just be looking for checking in with Heidi. Okay, well, it looks like we'll set it for January 20th because that was the availability of all members. Thank you for that. And our final item today is future agenda items. That's item 10. So during the public comment period, that was item number 2, we did ask for the public's input on future agenda items. At this time, we'd like to ask the council members if you have any agenda items you would like placed on a future meeting agenda. Open it up to our council members. All right, Shelley, can you check to see if there are any final public comments?
Absolutely. We've opened the Q&A panel. If anyone has any final comments to make, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And seeing no requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, thank you, Shelley. Thank you for
You're welcome.
moderating today.
Absolutely.
That concludes our business for today. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.